If you're in your mid-30s or beyond and you feel like your body's changing, like your sleep feels lighter, your energy's a bit lower, your mood is more reactive, and the strategies you used for fat loss and your health in general don't really work as well as they used to, this episode is going to be really helpful for you. I'm joined by Zora, a gerontologist and host of Hack My Age podcast. In this conversation, we're going to break down what's really happening during perimenopause and postmenopause from a female ageing and longevity perspective, and why so many of the approaches women rely on can start to backfire at this stage of life and set you back. This episode is about understanding how the nervous system, hormones and resilience change as we age, and why getting this piece right is so essential if you want to feel well again. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Zora, thank you so much. Such an amazing area to be in, and now it's like the perfect time to talk to you because there seems to be way more awareness around all this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for being open to having a conversation about menopause and perimenopause and all these taboo words, because it's a phase of life that we all go through if we're lucky enough to live through it. And just I think there are a lot of stereotypes that need to be busted and just bring also some awareness, and so women can feel prepared during this transition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. For sure. And I think a lot of people in peri and post menopause are ticking a lot of the boxes and doing a lot of things really, really well. And it's incredibly frustrating. I see this with so many clients. You're doing really well, but from your perspective, in like the aging science piece, what's actually changing at this stage that we don't really focus on enough? Like, we seem to have a lot of information, but that's not translating into much change. People are still like incredibly frustrated.
Yeah, just to bring the word gerontology into the piece, because a lot of people don't know what a gerontologist is, and I'm not a doctor, and I am somebody who studies aging and longevity. So what we try to do is not only look at the biological aspects of aging, but the psychological and the sociological aspects, and why are we getting diseases? How are we aging? Why are we dying? Like all these things, and we try to put it all together. And we do look at older adults a lot, and we advocate for older adults. However, we need to look at the whole life course from birth until death to really put the pieces together. So just to give people an understanding, I'm interested very much so in my 80-year-old self, and I'm interested in helping women through this transition, but also to protect themselves in the future. So what I'm seeing right now, it's really a great time to be talking about perimenopause, because your audience is somewhere mid-30s and up. And a lot of people don't know that it's around the age of 35 or mid-30s is when we start to lose our progesterone. And it kind of goes off the cliff. Like you may have heard, it feels like going off a cliff when you go to menopause. Mm-hmm. Estrogen it fluctuates up and down, and it does have this more gradual decline. Progesterone can literally fall off. And so that's why we may be feeling in our mid-30s or early 40s sleep disruption. Why am I waking up? I didn't have this problem before. Or your periods start to get heavier or lighter, and you may feel more anxious, more moody, when that really wasn't the case before. And this is perimenopause. It's absolutely normal. So I think this is a crucial time to really dial in your health, and that will help the transition. Now, there's no guarantees. I have met plenty of women who are spot on with their diet, their exercise, everything, yes. and they have hot flashes like there's no tomorrow. So I just want to tell people it's important to take care of your health during this time, and what you do today is going to protect your future self. And we gradually lose bone from our 30s. We gradually lose pretty much everything. If you heard about NAD or spermidine or any kind of molecule in your body, melatonin, we all have this gradual decline. So we want to be able to do things now so that we don't lose as much, or we support, let's say, bone health as we're going through the transition, and not have a fracture in our 60s and really not know why. So what they think the question you asked and originally is, we all may be doing the right things, but you're asking, what is it that we're missing in this transition?
The perspective from what's actually changing that we're not really focusing on. Like as we said, people are more dialed in than ever than what exactly to do in terms of the steps, building the foundations, the routines, blood sugar balance, gut health, and the type of exercise that's most suitable for bone density. But there's still something missing in the sense that people very regularly message me and clients I work with, and we have the conversation around, why is this not taking effect? Why do I not feel better? Why am I fatigued? Why are the symptoms so difficult of, like you say, the hot flashes, the fatigue, whatever it is? But there's a lot of research emerging now of, like you say, if you understand the fluctuations of what happens to hormones, you can tailor the solutions so that they are helpful to that. Because I think doing the two in isolation don't make sense.
Yeah. So you know so much about hormones, and it really does boil down to that in terms of all the fluctuations. What are we seeing? Why is our sleep disrupted? Why are we feeling more anxious? And this is so often due to the loss of our hormones. It doesn't mean that we didn't have hormone imbalances when we were teenagers, because obviously we did, but it just seems to it's different in this stage of life, and you're kind of caught off guard. At least when I was going through perimenopause, I'm 55 now. I didn't know what perimenopause was back then. I had no clue, and I do meet a lot of women who still don't know. So when you're aware, at least you may go into the doctor's office at you're 35 or 40 and go, I'm feeling a little off, my sleep's a little off. The typical answer you may get is, let's get you on an antidepressant and here's some sleep medication. But if you are aware that's your hormones, you could at least approach your doctor and say, maybe we should look at my hormones. Let's see how my estrogen, progesterone, or my testosterone, or maybe it's your thyroid or your insulin or whatever markers that you need to look at, because everything is connected to everything. Hormones don't live in a vacuum. They all affect each other. So I think what's missing in this phase of life, and it's not working anymore, the same diet, the same exercise, or the same routine you did, is because of the hormones. And it's not that it's only the hormones. I get a lot of women who ask me, I'm a mess and I can't sleep and I'm stressed out, and is this my hormones? And so when I ask them what's going on in their lives, well, I just got divorced, or I'm moving country, or my kids are sick. Well, anyone, whether you lost your hormones or not, or they're fluctuating, would be in this stress state. But what I'm seeing is that we're less resilient. We're less able to handle it like we used to before. That's a little different. So I don't want to just blame the hormones. There is life that happens. It's just that without our hormones, or when they're fluctuating up and down like crazy, it's harder to manage. And if you're aware of that, then we have solutions in trying to figure out how we can help our hormones and get through this difficult life situation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective of understanding that there's two things happening at once when you go, let's say, past 40. Usually your life ramps up in the sense that you have maybe children, teenagers to look after, plus aging parents, plus your career is probably even more demanding. And also what's happening with your hormones is progesterone's dropping and fluctuating, so your stress resilience is less. Understanding that's for a really nice first step. But also understanding that you versus another 55-year-old versus another 55-year-old will all have extremely different nuance. So understanding one might really need to focus on strength training because of blood sugar balance and just strength in general and fatigue. Another might really need to focus on the gut perspective. So I think what you said, I've heard you speak before about the piece of the foundational piece. It's very hard to make a good plan unless you first have the foundational part in place. So maybe we talk more about that, because I think we're extremely fast to go straight to the solution, but the solution can't work. You can't go into, the healthy eating. You can't go into any of the changes you want to make without first having key foundations. So from your perspective of working with people in peri and postmenopause, what are them key foundations that many of us are missing?
I'm so glad you mentioned that. And you talk a lot about the key components that we need to do before everything else. And that's why it's so important to look at foundation first, and no one wants to because it's too hard.
Yeah.
And
it's the
boring.
messy work. The messy work, for sure.
It is the messy work. So I always describe this biohacking pyramid. And if anybody doesn't know what biohacking, the short answer is just health optimization. And we like to use different tools and test, measure, and assess. And we understand we're all bio-individual. And that's important. That's why what you just said now is there could be two women the same age and completely different profiles. And that's why bio-individuality matters.
Yeah.
So meaning two people may respond completely different to the same protocol. So we got to shift, and that's okay. So the foundation of this pyramid of this biohacking pyramid, if you can imagine a pyramid, is the stuff we all know. And it's the stuff, like I said, it's boring and people don't like doing it. It doesn't have to be. And what you're doing is in your work is brilliant because it makes it easy for people. And that's the things we know in terms of getting the right nutrition. And I'm diet agnostic. I don't care as long as you figure it out what's best for you. And I don't think you should be listening to anybody except yourself. And then the movement. And in this phase of life, I think most of us agree strength training is really important, but we also need to look at other parts of that movement piece. And then we have the sleep component and stress component. And these two always go hand in hand because if you're really stressed out, it's really hard to sleep. But managing those, and stress is not going to go away, and stress is not bad. It's just our perception and how we react to the stress. That's a bit the problem that we have to get under control. And then a lot of people don't really talk about this last component is the community, your purpose in life, who you are, knowing yourself. These are really important as well to maintain that foundation. So the middle part of this pyramid is the middle and top tier of the pyramid is where everyone wants to go. And that's the supplements, the red light therapy, the ice bathing, and you don't really need a doctor's prescription for this. So people can jump to that very quickly. And then there's the top tier pyramid, which you need a doctor's advice. And this is maybe hormone therapy or injections and peptides and things like that. So I think these middle and top tiers, they don't work as well if we don't have the foundation. So I love to get women working on that foundation because you may not need the middle and the top tiers at all. Sometimes you do, but at least it'll be more effective.
Yeah. And that's interesting when you look at the bottom base, arguably the most important base because the top and the middle won't work without the bottom anyway. But a lot of people, because it's so individual, is like, okay, where do I go with this foundation thing? Like, what's the most important? Is it the shame piece? That's always keeping me dysregulated. There's multiple, as I call them, the messy areas of the identity, what we repeatedly say to ourselves. And even from the perspective of like, if your baseline is always stress and that's what you got used to, that's your familiar. And moving away from that is actually quite uncomfortable because you're moving away from something you know very well. So that's really interesting, the foundation. And then the middle piece, I just heard you mention about like the supplements, peptides piece. And of course, we're all extremely quick to go to that level. And now there's so much emerging research as well around GLP-1s and long-term effects. And really probably a lot of people realizing, God, like the foundations are absolutely key. Of course, there's certain instances that GLP-1s will be highly beneficial, but then there's others that are using them in the incorrect way. And it's just the human nature, I suppose. We are looking for something that's very straightforward. We want something black and white. Of course we do, because we're already quite overwhelmed. So it's very like a natural human thing to be like, okay, I just want the supplements. And I was obsessed with supplements for a long time, understanding and then finally understanding that I can't supplement without having foundation in place. There's nothing to supplement.
Yeah, there's so many pieces there. And I think what I've seen in my community, at least, is when we work on the foundation and it takes a while, but you can build habits that they don't feel hard anymore. You don't even think about it anymore. And this is why you need to be patient and give yourself time. And it's like building blocks. When you've created this nice foundation, life just gets so much easier. You will get to that point where it's a no-brainer and you don't think about it. You don't feel deprived or you don't feel... You just know that your body functions well when you do X, Y, or Z. I love it when women get there because then the rest of their lives, and you have to be ready. Things will shift again, unfortunately. But if you're able to understand and roll with the punches, and that's just life, well, then you'll be able to adjust. And that's called resilience.
Yeah, and it's like that slingshot analogy, like you're going back and you feel stuck and you feel stagnation, but then once you let go, like you can build habits really fast because you've put in the groundwork. So that's, I think, comforting to hear. And also, you've probably seen it happen time again, like myself. When somebody does find the right piece of the puzzle, then everything, this is actually much easier. So, and as I said, the one piece can be something super specific, but it's just uncovering it. And then, like for me, that one piece was probably around the shame piece and understanding your own nature as well. If you ask yourself, what causes me to burn out? What do I have very low tolerance for? And understanding as well, like we spoke before the podcast about the environment you're in. Like lots of people cannot change the environment they're in, but it's recognizing how important the environment plays and doing the best you can to alter it. So it's better for the nervous system, better for you being able to actually make change, because a chaotic environment is quite hard to create change in.
Mm-hmm. Can I ask, in your community, what do you recommend? What do you see being the most effective way for people to create habits?
Mm-hmm. So when I look at all the women that come to me, normally they're like perimenopause, extremely overwhelmed, spinning so many plates, like they're looking after kids, career. There's a lot of things going on. And the very first foundational piece I do, and what's in my course and what I always focus on first, is them being able to remove the shame, but also create self-compassion. Because if we don't do that initially, then nothing's going to be quick enough. If you don't see results fast enough, you go back to old familiar behaviors, and then weaving in the regulation work. So first, getting all that stuff in place where we're not going to sabotage our progress, and we're not going to continuously go back to the unfamiliar, the familiar hell, and put that in place. And then you can start slowly building the regulation techniques. But you can't build the regulation techniques. They're not very effective, if I'm very honest. Like somatic tools and regulation techniques, they're not overly effective unless you really do the deeper work around your narrative and your identity, everything you say to yourself, and all the other pieces, like really deconstructing your entire environment and realizing what's in, what's out. And like very meticulously going through that. Even for you, it might be a clutter. You cannot stand clutter. That's really dysregulating. And other people, it won't be at all. So it's really important understanding that individual's environment and going through all the things that are going to allow for all the regulation work to be effective. Because I think we're really quick to do regulation work and think, okay, this breath work, and I can't wait to talk to you about breath work as well. You did it with Patrick McKeown, I realised. I had him at a live event, fantastic. And breath work is actually one of the fastest ways to regulate in that moment for sure. But we're looking at between the regulation techniques, what you're doing to allow them to actually last for more than just that moment. So for example, if you did, a vagus exercise in the morning, an orientation in the afternoon, and maybe some kind of meditation in the evening, okay? That's fantastic. You're doing 3 really grounding things every day. But if you're rushing, self-criticizing, a lot of shame, in between each one of them techniques, what's going to, win? At the end of the day, the majority of your time is going to create the state you're in. So if you're in fight or flight between all of them activities, you're only getting momentary relief when you do the EFT tapping or you do any of the techniques. So what I do with clients, the first thing is we figure out what's stopping the techniques basically working. And once we've figured that out, then you're going to see massive success with every technique you do. You're going to be like feeling regulated, sighing, yawning, swallowing. And when you're in the sweet spot of you been regulated, as you know, that's when you can build a behavior because your nervous system is open to change. It's not scrambling back to the old and familiar all the time. It has bandwidth, capacity, window of tolerance to put new things in place gradually. So that's when you see the change. And it's like you have to coach the person through this at the beginning of like, this is slow, messy, pretty underwhelming work of removing all these obstacles, but to get excited for the ability to change once the obstacles are removed and you have foundations in place, all the foundational pieces. So that's a very long answer to your question, but I think really effective way to think of it and understanding we have to get the principle of delayed gratification. We are conditioned to want quick results. And in January, that's a really good example. The month of January, we're really seeking fast change. Like I heard a friend was speaking to me about her friend and she was saying she's at it again. She gained 10 pounds over Christmas and now she's aggressively removing the 10 pounds by eating like 700 calorie diet a day. And she's doing this for weeks until the scale goes down, not looking at any markers of, okay, why in the first place did you want to overeat in a really short space of time? Why was that reason? Was it because you were restricting previous to that? Was it because your blood sugars are imbalanced? Was it because, X, Y, Z? And understanding that, of course, we're going to have these cycles of you want quick results and that becomes your norm. So again, if you really have self-awareness about that, you're much more likely to change. Of course, the insight alone isn't going to make you change, but understanding, okay, it's January, I looked at the scales, I panicked. What am I going to do? What's my decision? Am I going to go on the 700 calorie diet, go to the gym 5 days a week for 2 hours? Or B, am I going to look at this in a really grounding way? Do I want to lose 10 pounds for the last time? Or do I want to keep in this cycle over and over again? And of course, if somebody did want to lose 10 pounds, first of all, they're thinking, okay, Is my sleep good quality enough to do this? Is my head in the right place to be consistent? What is going to be, preempting what's going to stop this happening? And, they're the things you should be asking. But psychologically, we're all going straight to, what exactly should I eat? Give me the meal plan. That's like step 100. There's like 99 steps before that to make the meal plan enjoyable, and possible.
Yeah. And what you'll find is actually all this, that self-torture that women go through, maybe it worked when you were younger, but you get even more frustrated. I've seen women who train harder, work out more, eat less, and they're still gaining weight, not even like stabilized.
That's so true. And we see them, them like quick, short content videos, and they're like, oh, I just exercised less and did Pilates. And then naturally I started losing weight. And it's like, hold on a second. Let's look at this from the perspective of what you were doing was highly dysregulating. Then you started maybe routines that compounded to be more regulating. And that's why then you stopped emotional eating as much. You were more mindful with food. So sometimes you don't even need to focus on like this extremely rigid plan. Fat loss, as I say, a lot of the time is a byproduct of a regulated nervous system. Of course, you're not going to magically lose weight just by becoming more regulated. But if you have a loose structured plan, it's much more easy to adhere to because you're mindful enough to not be on autopilot all the time. But going to the age of peri and postmenopause, and what I see so much is that people they're underestimating how much your behaviors, your thoughts, what happens neurologically, how much that changes because of the fluctuation of hormones. And I think the narrative is only recently changing, where it's like people with PMDD, for example, or bad PMS. And they're saying, wow, actually, I have a lot of shame, guilt, self-blame for this. But understanding, hold on a second, there's actually a huge percentage of women that are really deeply struggling mental health-wise because of the hormonal fluctuations they're experiencing. Over the years, this year is really the first year I'm seeing people really vocal about this and understanding, wow, we've really been quiet about all this. Like, especially, you said at the beginning, post-menopause, like taboo topic. You and me speak about it every day, so it's not taboo at all, but for plenty of people it is. And I remember being out for dinner before, and a woman was at the table in her mid-50s, and she was mortified that she was getting overheated. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, like it wouldn't bother me in the slightest. It's like if a man had perimenopause symptoms, do you think he'd be quiet about them? I wouldn't think so. I think there's amazing solutions out there for him. I would imagine there's incredible programs, incredible compassion, and it would be very much talked about. So it's just very interesting that you're up against that now as well. The narrative around, the shame of like, oh, I'm experiencing these things that if you're very lucky and you live to that age, you will experience too. So let's be ready for that. Let's be ready to understand.
It's amazing, actually, because I don't know if you've seen, I interview women around the world as a nomadic person. And
Yes.
I literally stop women on the street and I say, can you answer 5 questions about menopause?
I love that, yeah.
And I have, many, many interviews that I've posted, but there's a lot of rejection that you don't see. So I've spoken to many more than 300 because of all the rejection, because sometimes you get this horrifying look on a woman's face, like, oh my God, did you just call me old? Because they are associating that word menopause with I'm old.
Yes.
And they're being their own ageist self or ageist against themselves. And then you have women who are just terribly shy and for all understanding. I mean, I'm going to get a camera and film you and post on social media. So I'm very, I don't bully anybody into taking videos, but she'll want to speak to me. But then there's women who just are so many women are just do not want to talk about it. And they'll, not even with a camera, not even with me. I don't even know you. You just some stranger on the street who walk up to me. So I have to tell you, yes, most women I meet are not ready to talk about menopause. It may look like it because I'm posting all of the ones that will, but most people don't. And that's a little surprising. And I find in different cultures, they're more open and some are a bit more closed. And
that's really interesting culturally.
Culturally, yeah. I mean, what surprised me the most was actually in Thailand, how open the women were to speak about menopause. I got very little rejection there. And she would speak to me about her libido and her sex life and on a camera. So I'm like, this is fabulous. No shame. No, it was the normal part of life. And But the hardest culture I worked with was in Czech Republic, where it was really tough to get an interview. And I did get a lot of nasty rejection.
Wow.
I would say, as if I were insulting them. After a while, I had to speak to some younger women in the Czech Republic. I said, is this something I'm saying it wrong, or should I hire a translator? Should I? And they said, no, it's just part of the culture. And yes, because of the association with menopause and older age, that you're basically telling them you look old. And that was not my intention at all, and never had a problem before, but it was just difficult to navigate. So different cultures have different attitudes towards menopause, and you can see that there is research actually supporting the attitudes that are more open to menopause or more positive about menopause tend to have an easier transition.
Of course, because you're quicker to find a solution, you're quicker to have self-awareness. It's almost like you're dreading it and pushing it away, which of course is just going to make everything so much worse. But I think as well, I heard recently a Chinese medicine practitioner in China speaking about their perspective and perception of peri and postmenopause, which is again quite different. I would love to talk about that. I'd love to hear about that from you, because it's so culturally different to a lot of, say, Europe, for example.
Yeah, the few Chinese that I've interviewed, I noticed that, well, just in general in Asia, when I noticed that there is a difference in attitude, in an understanding and knowledge about menopause based on social economic situations. So a woman who appeared to have a higher socioeconomic level knew about hormone therapy or understood there existed something like that, was maybe more open to it. A woman who was selling food on the street, say Vietnam, as she was less open to HRT or didn't know about it or was happily using some kind of herb or supplement. Her attitude, like say somebody was a fruit vendor in Vietnam, was more like, why are you even asking me about this question? Because I've got much bigger fish to fry than this. Like, this is not an issue in my life right now.
The luxury to even think about this. Yeah.
There's more pain in my life than that.
Yeah.
Was the message I felt was coming through. And so sometimes this research that we read, and you'll find that maybe there's better attitudes towards menopause in Asia, but sometimes I wonder if it's just, there may be women not even reporting it, like it's just not a thing, or they don't say how bad it is because they're just accept it as pain that I have to go through, and it is what it is.
The one I actually heard, I think one or two kind of interviews, and the women in China were saying, like, we don't really experience this like the Western world reports. We don't. And then there's the debate of, is that because of their diet? Is that because of they're more connected with community and all the different reasons? But there seemed to be some level of rejection of it being a thing for everyone.
Yes, they have hot flashes. They get them. There's no doubt. They have hot flashes. Some are more intense and some are less intense. I wouldn't say that they're getting away with menopause. They just don't seem to have the same attitude as we do. They put up with it, and for whatever reason, and it's not a thing. And I think we are in the Western world a bit more, well, why should we put up with it? Like, if I could feel better, well, help me. Let's talk about it. And I think because we have realized that we have not been given the attention that we need in healthcare in general for women, and even less in older women, and even less in menopause, you get kind of angry. Like, well, why shouldn't we get the same attention as a man or a younger woman, even for that matter, because it's all about procreation and reproduction. That you get a little angry, so we are more vocal about it.
Yeah, you're almost like it's a forgotten thing. It's like, hold on, you've done your job already. You had or hadn't had your kids. So like, what are you complaining about? That's like a very common narrative, like, you're not the priority anymore, which is like so crazy, because when you think of how important women are in so many aspects of society, when you're past having your children, so when you're past 40, you're the backbone of society in so many ways. So it's really interesting, like this extremely, and globally, like it's the backbone of everything. The spine of society is a lot of women that are past childbearing age, yet they're not getting any of the resources. Even now, like I still get a lot of questions around HRT. And is it good or bad? Like that kind of question. So, you're scratching level 1 surface of what it even is. And even like the debate of, okay, bioidentical, what's the different HRTs? What's the different types? And it's really interesting. Even experts, there's really different ideas of what it is and isn't. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, because I heard you speak about this really well before, a really grounded standpoint.
Yeah, HRT is one of those controversial topics, like so many other things. And I've done many programs to learn about hormones and HRT, and I've spoken to so many experts and menopause doctors. People who are treating women for the last 4 decades, and they all have a slightly different approach. Some are very much against HRT, and some of them are. And I are pro HRT, but even when you're pro HRT, they have very specific ways and formulas, and so I just tell a woman who is considering HRT is to be open-minded and to learn about it, understand what that is, and then you have the right questions to approach your doctor with. And I think it's such a personal decision that you have to be ready for it. One of the programs I did, which was really good, was by Dr. David Rosensweet, and he was training doctors, and I was allowed to take the program. And I noticed what he said, I thought was very, very, very good. What he did is that he told these doctors, do not ever bully a woman into HRT. As pro hormones as this program was, it was the Institute of Bioidentical Medicine. So, but he says the woman needs to be completely confident and with this approach, and confident. You have to be confident, first of all, prescribing this to her, but she also needs to be confident in taking it. Yeah. And if she's not ready, let her be. There are so many other things that we can do. Yes. She just needs to read up on it and make that decision herself. And I like that. And I always advise women, just feel your intuition, I think, is pretty strong, and do what you think is right for you, no matter what other people are saying, because no one knows you like you, but you got to understand yourself a little bit.
That's a really good point. Like, say if you've a circle of friends and they're all in, early stages of menopause, and one has taken HRT and seen amazing results, and she's saying to the rest of the group, you have to try this, like this is incredible. But her physiology, her background is very different to the rest in the group. The other person in the group might be saying, look, I'm actually taking a few different herbs and they seem to be working pretty well now. And the woman's still saying, but you have to understand, like, my life has changed so much for the positive. You need to try it. But again, everyone in the group is coming from a completely different perspective. I think you're so right. It's so nuanced. It's like going into the doctor and him saying, oh, right, okay, you've really heavy periods. Let's get you on the pill. And one woman's like, my life is so much better. I'm on the pill. I don't have heavy periods. And 10 other women in the group are like, oh, this feels awful. This doesn't work for me. They're not really comparable, but it is understanding that everything works differently. And because of the lack of evidence around different things on the female, so HRT on the female body, the pill on the female body, we know that there's no one size fits all and there's no real answer. It is, to a degree, it's a trial and error scenario, because you have to, first of all, have the foundations in place that you want the HRT to work to the best of its ability as well. And that's the question I have, actually. When somebody takes HRT, is there an environment they can create to get the best out of it when they've already tried multiple solutions, but they still feel really debilitating symptoms? What's that scenario, best case, for taking HRT?
I think absolutely a woman needs to consider that foundation or work on that foundation while she's taking HRT, because whether you actually have HRT or not, your body has to detoxify the hormones. There's this whole pathway that happens. And if you are drinking alcohol, for example, now that has to be detoxified by the liver, just like your estrogen has to be, whether it's your own or if you're taking HRT. And alcohol gets a priority. So the liver's busy detoxifying the alcohol, and you have estrogen running around the body in a sort of toxic state because it has to be detoxified. That's not really good for the body, and that's not going to make you feel good either. So I just think you need to really try to create this environment that is healthy to receive the hormones as well. And you will feel much better with it. And so, because I get so many women telling me, oh, HRT didn't work for me, or it's really, I felt even worse. Well, your body probably wasn't prepared for it. Or maybe you've got the wrong formula, the wrong dosage, the wrong delivery method. It's so many parts and so many ways to take HRT. It's really important to understand those differences. And if you want it to work, create that foundation. And I know it's really hard. It would be really mean for me to tell a woman to just clean up your diet and lifestyle and then get on the hormones, because she needs the hormones in order to clean up the diet and lifestyle.
Yeah. Chicken and egg scenario.
Because it's so effective. It can be when you get it right. Like that hot flash is gone in a heartbeat. And sometimes women feel it right away. Some people need 2 weeks. Some people need 2 months. Like there's different timelines for different people because our bodies all respond differently. So it can be amazing when you get it right. But it's sometimes you just need that as a crutch to get the whole piece. One thing that really irks me is when we talk about hormones and the protection that you get from protects the bones, protects the heart, protects the vagina, protects the breast, everything, the brain. And I think it's a little misleading to use that word protect, because it means, oh, then I don't need to do the strength training because I take my HRT because that's going to help my bones. And I think that's incorrect. So you cannot ignore those foundation just because you're taking HRT and feeling so much better. And hopefully because you are feeling much better, you can continue to work on that foundation, which is going to protect your future self on top of it. So not only feel good now, you'll feel good when you're 85.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because there is that misconception. It's like somebody's going on thyroid medication and they think, I'm going to give it a go. And they take the first dose the doctor prescribed. And that's pretty much guesswork. Like it's very hard to get it right the first time. It's the same with HRT. It's quite difficult until you understand, like you say, the correct one. It might be a patch, it might be a pill, whatever it is, and a gel. Over time, working with it and knowing the expectation is maybe it'll take me 2 months to feel any different. And I think that's really good awareness for people to understand that. Otherwise, you're in that scenario, oh, I'll give it a try and then I'll decide in 2 weeks. You spoke really well about the metabolization of what happens when you take a supplement or a medication, and how you need to, think about the gut health, the liver health, in order to remove from the body.
Yeah, it's a lot. There are a lot of moving parts here. I think they're all good or can be good when you get it right. And one thing I think is really important for women who are your audience, maybe in mid-30s, early 40s. Let's say you're just starting that perimenopause journey and you're thinking, this could be perimenopause. It's great to go test your hormones. And I know that maybe they're fluctuating and that's difficult to interpret for some doctors. But there's some things out there that if you look at them as a biohacker, with your biohacker hat on, test, measure, and assess, and you look at multiple tests, not just one, which is a snapshot in time, but you can look at them over time. And there's even devices. God, what's this one called? I think it's Mira, or it's you pee on a stick. I haven't tried it yet, so I can't endorse this or anything, but the idea is brilliant, where at home you can test all month long, pee on this stick, and you'll see over time how your progesterone is declining or going up or then going down. So you go, aha, maybe that's why I'm not sleeping so well. I need a little bit of support. And you get a little progesterone cream, which you can get online. You don't even need a doctor's prescription, although I always encourage you to work with your doctor. But it's that kind of thing where it's easy to get and it's quite effective in that early perimenopause phase, rather than getting on a sleep medication or antidepressant. Maybe you do need it, but I always like to work with the low-hanging fruit first. And it's quite a very safe, hormone that's easy to get.
I find that interesting when you look at, so say someone does, and I've seen them test so many times, the urine test, the saliva, and you have a lot of control of it. The kit's sent to you, you do it at home. Most of them are quite expensive, so, not going to be possible for everyone at all. There's loads of different online companies, more than ever. They're all over online where you can do it. Depending on the country you're in, the GP may or may not test certain hormones. It's, it's blood tests you're getting. It's different. Again, as I said, globally, there's people from here listening from everywhere. So it might be an online test you need. It may not be within affordability for you. Fine. But understanding before you get these tests, you're going to get them interpreted, right? The basic understanding of it's not this linear decline of hormones. There's a level of huge fluctuation. So when the hormones are fluctuating, you're understanding that, some days of the month it's going to be high, some it's low, some it's in between. And understanding quite how to track where you are in your cycle in perimenopause menopause when it goes irregular. So there's a lot of things you have to have a basic understanding before you're going to get very best out of doing testing. Otherwise, you're just going to hear the doctors say you've low progesterone. That's just crazy to just look at something like that without seeing patterns, without understanding what's pretty normal and seen very often when you were, say, past 45, for example. So yeah, I think a lot of people take it for gospel, the interpretation of the test, and they run with that, even though that, as you said, it might be just a snapshot in time. Like you've had a really busy, stressful month.
Yeah, actually. And you're right. And the ranges, we have to also be aware of ranges because a doctor, especially when you get closer to menopause, and the doctor says, well, your hormones are normal. Well, yeah, they're all gone because that's normal for a menopausal woman. I need help. So give me something, right? So or you get on HRT and they're just so low. They give, it's your body's maybe not absorbing it well, or something's happening and it's not your delivery method, and you're considered normal because you're post-menopause, but yet you still feel like garbage. So we want to make sure you work with somebody who understands hormones or a menopause doctor who knows what those optimal ranges are.
Yeah.
So optimal, not only feeling better in lowering your symptoms, but me as a gerontologist, I always want to protect my future self. So we want to be in certain ranges, as well as testing our bones, testing your urine linings, getting your breast screening, all this stuff that's important so that you don't get any surprises too early on in life.
I think as well, going back to what you just said about GPs and healthcare professionals vary greatly with their insight and interest in peri and postmenopause. So their understanding of ranges, their understanding of of an individual, it very much depends on the doctor. So you have to understand that too. And like people now are, like, 20 years ago, people said, the doctor's the expert. And now people are, sometimes when the doctor's decision or answer doesn't feel complete, they're listening to their intuition and saying, okay, I need to do a little bit more digging here. And that's normal. That's normal. They're under time constraints. I probably do need to go the next step to understand this fully.
Yeah, well, that's why we're all online looking for answers from menopause influencers, because we're not getting the answers from our doctor, which is ridiculous. Like nobody would be searching for this if the doctors were trained in menopause or knew how to deal with the woman in menopause or making her feel great, and not just look at the numbers and your normals are normal, go home. There's nothing wrong with you.
Okay, last question. If you could change one narrative around postmenopause or perimenopause, what would it be?
That your life is over. People think it's end of life and you're just midlife. And especially when it comes to libido and relationships and your sex life, you think it's gone forever. And it's not. It's not. It's not all downhill from there. Like, those birthday cards just drive me nuts. It's not. This is just a transition. You're going to get through it. And if you ever speak to a woman who's in their 60s, the ones that I've interviewed, the when I've speak to women post 60 or 70, they just cannot wait for us to get through this transition. They're rooting for us. It's so good on the other side. You can't imagine. Life is amazing.
So, I love that. I've had so many people say, oh, it's so great when you get past it because you're so vocal. You don't take shit from anyone. You know what you're about. You're very clear with your values. And it's just like it's like lots of clarity, which is lovely.
It's empowering. I tell my husband every day, I love menopause. Like, this is great. Yeah. And he's not so happy sometimes. He's like, I don't know, you're too vocal.
It's my job. You can just tell him.
Yeah, he's not used to that. But I think it's a very empowering time of life.
For sure. I love that. Where can people find you? I'm sure after this conversation, people will want to see your social media website or whatever way they can see your stuff.
Oh, if you can just remember Hack My Age, Hack, H-A-C-K, hackmyage.com. It's my website. It's my Instagram. It's my TikTok. It's everything. It's so easy to find me. And if you can't remember that, Zora the Explorer, because it's like Dora the Explorer, you'll find me. I pop up like that too.
Z-O-R-A. Perfect. Thank you so much, Zora. I appreciate that so much. That was such a great conversation. I think a really empowering and enlightening conversation that it gets better. And if you're listening and thinking, this finally explains what I've been experiencing, I would love to hear from you. Email me, direct message me. I'm always really appreciative of the messages. I'll see you in the next episode.